because like I said in the previous call, like my quote unquote addiction wasn't really an addiction. It was a compulsion, right? It was an all consuming thing for about a third of my life where I was just like, I could not function throughout my entire day without substances, right? But I was like, I have to reverse engineer this somehow. And I had to look at how the brain projects and receives information. And when you go into that notion, the brain is just a receiver. So if it's receiving based off of repetition, what do I have to repetitiously give it? Right. And I had to give it some different inputs, right?
Pull up a chair, set the world aside. Let's find the truth we keep trying to hide.
Welcome to Across the Table. I'm your host, James Finochio. And today we have Kyle Trautmann with High Vibe Holonomics back on. We wanted to get him back on as the next show. And so I want to say hi to everybody, Kyle.
Dude, what's up, man? Like, honestly, dude, your hair that matches your shirt, your sweatshirt,
Yeah, the
and
gray.
then matches my vibe, dude, it's perfect. It looks so good. It's almost kind of like mobster vibe. I dig it.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's so good. No, man, I'm so thankful to do this because in reflection, especially just even in the last call, like having an opportunity to possibly speak to veterans, people that are going through either substance abuse or just recovery in general, is near dear to my heart, which I know I'm going to do more so in the next like 5 years. So just like having like a short series like this, it means a lot to me. So yeah, thank you for doing this, for doing a next segment.
Absolutely love it. I'm just excited to do it. And I felt like we barely scratched the surface last time. Um, but so our audience gets more of a understanding of who you are and
Yeah.
what you're about. You have an interesting origin story. And if you could give our audience an understanding of high vibe holonomics and why it's different than other self development programs like NLP or like shadow work or
Sure.
those things.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is about that term, that usage of words like self-development. It's really more about spiritual development, right? Like how you're connecting more so to spirit, right? So the aspects of neuroscience are super super helpful. Holonomics in its notion, I know we touched and alluded to this on our previous segment, but it's really about what are you canvassing for the whole, right? For your wholeness, right? Which is just your nervous system accentuating and constantly striving for, for your just being, you know. And I think the way that we have structured this, not only just in a program, because it's not really quote unquote a program, it's really more of a development platform where people can be not only just a part of their own transformation, essentially their own liberation, but also they have constant touch points, right? Where it's just like most programs, it's like, hey, you buy something, you go through it. And I learned this is wildly transformative for me back in 2021, is one of the sales guys that I worked with. I can't remember his name, but he worked for a cat named Ari Whitten, which was one of my first mentors back in 2016. And he had told me that the premise and the success specifically of a program is based off of how many touch points you have via accountability. And that just took over for me. For me, it was like, okay, well, if we can talk to an individual one to one, that's great. Fantastic. We can record it. Fantastic. You can play it back. But when you can have constant touch points, we start to see the incremental percentages. And we have back studies for this. We'll probably dive into a little bit more. where you can see successful markers. So for me, when I took that into account, I was like, how can I help people succeed on a consistent basis? And this is more so from that notion where I was like, this is beyond self-development. This is really just about how do you involve yourself on a community level, how do you involve yourself on a spiritual level, and then how do you develop in a whole fashion. That's the whole notion of holonomics, which we've touched on in the previous segment. But holonomics in its essence behind just my origin story was just taking the premise that you can recover, right? It's not just you're recovering from maybe substance abuse, um, maybe emotional abuse, maybe anything else that comes from that side of quote unquote abuse. But that was the biggest thing for me. I was like, I don't want it to be pigeonholed just to one thing. Right. And especially when Katie had reached out to me and I was like, this is deeper, because I've had conversations, awesome conversations with people on previous platforms about like what this work can do, but like it's really talking about people who feel like they can't recover. Right. So for the holonomic standpoint and what we've done in the accountability structure that we've built, it's given you proven metrics through studies that says you can do this if you just show up. Right? And if you work with somebody that can actually initiate you to show up, it's going to be huge. It's going to be huge.
A lot of people fail. It's usually like, seems like everything falls to 80-20. Your
Yeah,
your your rate is generally like 80, your success rate is like 20. Oh, what makes it what do you see the difference being in people succeeding with your program and people who do not?
dude. Well, one first and foremost, like outside of conversation that I had before, like the fact that you brought up the Pareto principle before anything else, like that is massive because you're starting to talk in nature's terms, right? And for me, what I've seen more so just not only just working with people like in we call it in the trenches, right, but also people outside of just those trenches, is do they have enough touch points, do they have enough, right? Because the repetitions, the two governing laws, the law of repetition and the law of association, how we repeatedly do something, and then also how we associate with what's outside of ourselves through spatial recognition. That's holonomic brain theory in just like a very quick nutshell, is the key to really developing how we can succeed in what our endeavors are, right? So obviously as we go through the structures, kind of almost more so the analytics and studies of how that's about, what I've seen in our 97% success rate is through four literally main components to how this works. Can you have fun, right? Can we get you in a playful state? Can you be coachable? Can you follow instructions? Can you learn to let go? Obviously, if that's a challenge for you, we're going to teach you the surrender techniques. But then also, can you really, really follow through with having a focused plan, right? Our emphasis here is more so on like, can you keen in on focus, right? Can you keen in on focus? So I love what you brought up on just that notion of the Pareto principle because it is an 80-20 split, right? Our negative bias, just confirmation, how we move. And even just in our last conversation that we had last week, it's talking about what is confirming everything outside, right? And the confirmation bias, just from a negative standpoint, excuse me, is just to keep us alive, right? It's to keep us in this sense of safety. But mostly when we're in our own, I would say our own bind, it's kind of like this pseudo sense of safety. It's not really defined by anything that goes to a major depiction of desire, right? Most people, especially just even recovery, because we work with a landscape of different people, but when we're talking about in the notion of recovery, excuse me, is do you have a set goal outside of your biochemistry? Right? So when we're sitting there and we're talking about this notion of like, hey, what is the difference? What is the change? I'm like, you constantly show up, right? Even when you're feeling meek or weak, you constantly show up. The way that we have structured not only just the program that we have built, because we have obviously a curriculum on the back end, something that is more self-paced, but we also have something that you can be immersive in, where you can be like, hey, like, how do I take this to the next level where I know regardless of how I show up, you're going to be accepted. We're not talking about 12 step. We're not talking about any of that. We're talking about, can you just fundamentally show up so we can teach you the practice and get you through kind of that struggle phase where we're talking about even within the flow cycle. That is what has given us that 97% success rate. And for me, I'm like, dude, I would sacrifice any monetary value. I would sacrifice any success or ideology when it comes down to what makes quote unquote this practice successful. If people know that they can show up on a consistent basis and they can learn the mechanisms of how to move through this process. So I think that is the biggest differentiation between not only just the program aspect of what we do here, but also just really how we care about people. Like that's the biggest thing. So for me, when I sit down with this, especially within that question, because I was just like, dude, anybody that brings the Pareto principle into this process, I'm like, I get so jacked up because like you're talking in nature's terms. Like we can divert to nature and natural law as fast as possible, as quick as possible on a consistent basis, dude, we've already won. Now it's just about, can we quell the system, the nervous system, to be able to open up to the concepts and be more receptive to what nature has to provide. So I love it.
For the audience, can you explain the principle and also what is a touch point?
Yeah, dude, I love it. So the Pareto principle is the 80-20 split. So 80%, so if you think about it in the breakdown, and I highly suggest anybody just looking this up because it'll make sense. If you have say 20% of the cities has 80% of the or population essentially, right? So it's like that's like a macro scale. The Pareto principle literally gives you the 80% aspect of your effort components to the results that you're giving from a 20% notion. So it's like if you are truly in line with that aspect, you're going to start to see that if you show up, say just hypothetically, 20% of the time, right, on the lower end, 80% of your results is going to be based off that effort from that 20%. And via the law of polarity, it's also going to say vice versa, right? So if you show up 80% of the time, 20% of your results will show and possibly diminish from that notion as well. Right. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's just saying the more repetitions that you have is obviously going to quell to that notion of how many people or what study group or what kind of like size that you have specifically from those groups. But like the big thing about the Pareto principle is that 80% of your results comes from 20% of your results or your effort, excuse me. So now if we can just take this, and this is a perfect side tangent based off of what we were going to talk about, is that if you just show up 20% of the time, right, 80% of your output is going to come from that effort. Right. So if you show up with your best 20% of the time, 80% is going to show up in your life and it's going to be quantified in a different way. Obviously, you're going to have your own subjective take on that. But the biggest thing about the Pareto principle is really about making sure that you have more touch points. And we're going to allude to that here in a sec. More touch points specifically for your quote unquote success, whatever that is deemed for you based off of your take. But now, on the touch points is reps. Same thing. Reps. Like, can you show up, man? The best thing about what we do here is like, can you show up and just get the reps? Man, you're getting familiarity when you're working with people. We have 4 different facilitators within our practice, but also at the same time, can you just show up? Can you just get the reps, those touch points where it's just like, hey, you get that ping, that email that says, hey, we got this call going on this time. Can you just show up? And if you can if you can show up, you will get results. No question.
Like going to the gym for your mind.
100%. Well, dude, like, man, I cannot fundamentally, I can't, like, this is, dude, I get so emotional about this right now because it wasn't about what I wanted to make different, for people to help. I wanted to make sure that they knew if they had objective terms on how this could help them. I'm tearing up right now because I'm like, if you can just keep showing up, and if we give you that space to show up and we give you a parameter of how to show up, there is documented aspects within just the American Society of Training and Development that shows if you just do it, if you just keep showing up, we can prolong, not only prolong, but procure essentially what your outcome can be. Based off of your desires and also your visualization. Obviously, we teach that within our practice too. But the touch points is making sure that you have a consistent place to go. And when you have a consistent place to go, being like, oh my gosh, like we're within, High Vibe Holonomics, the Holonomic Institute. I can go somewhere Monday, Tuesday, possibly Wednesday, even Thursday if you're a lady, right? Because we got ladies calls too. If you go in on Friday, if you're dealing with a little bit more so on the growth dynamic on building up business, right? We hit every dynamic for you to essentially grow. We're growth architects here, right? So it's like, how do you want to implement yourself? And those touch points literally are just a different way of saying, what are the repetitions? What are the repetitions of how people show up?
So, yeah, yeah. I noticed you had me and Katie wanted to know if that was dirt water you had last time you were on.
What was that?
Was that dirt water you were drinking last time?
No, 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 that was coffee.
That was
Coffee.
coffee?
Yeah. I'm coffee free on this call. Yeah, that was just coffee. So maybe that makes sense. So like I take mana. This dude, I love this so much.
Mhm.
So mana is a supplement with fulvic acid, and I put it in my coffee, so it looks like literally like super super dark. Doesn't actually look like coffee itself. So yeah, I had that in my coffee. So those are just minerals, potassium, all those things that we were talking about in the first call. But yeah.
And for those who don't know, the dirt water is, how was Katie explaining it to me so that it makes your um, cells more ready to accept energy, something like that?
Dude, I love this that you're saying this is the key aspect of even what we were referring to in last call is the cell membrane potential. It is the big key to everything that makes electrical charge possible. And obviously you can get into electrolytes, like that's a big marketing term, blah 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 blah. But that doesn't actually mean anything unless your cell membranes can actually hold that potential. And when you have that, it's a wash. It's a fun time. It's a fun
Yeah,
time.
so exactly similar to what we were talking about with your receptors or your cells also being able to um, hold the nutrients that you're giving them. So
Yes,
that then what you're able to hold the charge.
exactly.
Is that
Exactly.
I have the right understanding of that?
Yeah, so your cells have a conductivity aspect to it, and it's really about that notion of cell membrane potential. It's like if you can hold that charge, we in going into those 9 circuits that we alluded to in our last conversation, I was like, how deep can you get in your energetic potential? Like, and it sounds kind of woo-woo, yeah, but it's more so on a biological aspect. How deep can you get? And the deeper you have on that cell membrane potential, everything else works, not only just in cohesiveness to what you would prefer, honestly. Let's be straight with that, but how your cells want to actually accentuate what their potential is, which is just pushing out the sodium and also the potassium proton pump of how to just get you into that state of consistently creating energy for you to be where you're at. And then on top of that, it's just understanding the states of what your actual cycles are, and we alluded to that on the notion of the flow cycle, the ultradian cycle and the circadian cycle. When you can kind of align all three of those, like, dude, your energetic potential outside of what you deem as a problem, it's all emotional on the back end, and then we do a pretty good job taking care of that too. So it's fun, man. Like the small echelons of energy potential just plays into some of the nine circuits, and
Uh,
it gets really fun with that.
See, that's what I still now I wanna come back to your origin story because we seem to be in
Cool.
this right now. But, yeah, like, we covered that in the well, touched on it about the, 9 circuits, but can you take us into a little bit deeper detail on the 9 circuits since we're there?
Yeah. Dude, absolutely. I mean, it's energy or nothing, right? Right. So if we sit in this aspect, like I had to break down within my own research, my own observation, like what is energy as a whole, right? And if whole is holonomics in its own essence of Greek law. I know I sat back on the last conversation that we had where I had said that it is the definition of Greek law, and it's not. It's Greek for the whole law, right? Is what holonomics says. So that can help kind of like clear that up. But when it comes down to the nine circuits, is do you have enough ATP to move through your system? Right? That's the biggest aspect, right? Obviously, there's foundational pieces to that, like a little bit nutrition, aligning that obviously with your circadian components, your sleep cycles, your rest cycles, right? Like I said, before we even hit record, I was like, I've taken 2 naps today. I was like, we're on a deeper components, right? Where your rest is so imperative, especially just in the winter time. Like for me, like aligning with nature just makes more sense. So that's deeper on the ATP, right? So like for me, even just waking up at 2 o'clock, before we press record, it feels like a second morning, right? You feel refreshed. For me, myself personally. But then the bioenergetic component is really just like what we call the forever framework. And that's the whole aspect of THI. Like, what do we have to take care of emotionally? As you're moving through this landscape, you're going to have emotions. You're going to have triggers. You're going to have things that are just happening from the outside world that are going to provoke something that's already happening within your perceptual lens. And the forever framework from that bioenergetic aspect is really clearing that out, really giving you a clear way of not only just seeing the world, but also how to appropriately respond rather than react to the world. And then diving into that component is just really like what is your breath, man? I was just speaking on this earlier on a post I made just in Facebook. What's your breath like? Are you short, right? Are you just in your chest? You got a belly breath? Like what's the difference between, are you accentuated? Are you breathing with the tongue to the roof of your mouth, right? Or are you just short circuiting this beautiful aspect, which I call, the spirit of life, right? Your breath moving through you, right? So when you take that into account, how are you accentuating? And this is the one of my favorite things about this program and like working with people is teaching people how to accentuate breath for ATP. Documentation on that side too, which is super, 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 super fun. Right? So it gets really detailed, right? But also at the same time, it's like it's something that's got to be something that calls through you in that notion. And for me, on top of that, like those are the first three, like primaries, right? Can you make sure that you have enough ATP, the basis of the foundation? Can you obviously move through the bioenergetic components? What's happening emotionally in your life? What are the past beliefs, perceptual lenses? And then also, how do we move through breath? Can we teach you just fundamentally how to breathe in just short bursts? Because obviously, the autonomic nervous system is going to happen throughout the day, right? But if you can really sequester a small amount of time to really teach yourself how to breathe for energy, dude, amazing.
See, this is something that you'll find interesting is that those who were in the military and went through boot camp, do you know what the purpose of singing cadence is while you're running?
Dude, I've learned and I've researched some amazing things through the Army infantry, but I'm so cool with being schooled right now on what that means.
Cadence teaches you how to breathe.
Boom,
That is all it is for,
boom,
is to teach you to breathe.
boom.
So,
Like you can yeah, and you can see it right there. Like it's so beautiful because I'm like, if we have those circuits, regardless of, what your occupation is, like obviously, like regardless of what's happening, like that has to be because that is the spirit of life. That is spirit moving through you. Right. And then it's just the four. Four represents the house, the foundation. That is really just making sure everything is housed properly, right, within not only just spirit but also just within like your own cadence from a subjective and then also from a spiritual standpoint. And that really just says how you're aligning with your sleep, right? That's it. We alluded a little bit on this on the previous call, but the big thing is, how do you rest?
right. I'm curious.
I'm a weird example right now because I had 2 naps throughout the day. Woke up at 4:30, did a flow block, worked at that, took a nap at 8 o'clock. Sounds weird, right? But this is more so based off of, like, how I move, right? And then took a second nap literally at, 1 o'clock, right? So it's just really about understanding the consolidation of not only just what you're learning, but then also making sure that you have the appropriate energy for everything else that you need to do throughout the day. It's challenging, obviously, for people's different circumstances. Totally get that, but obviously there are ways that you can navigate that for your circadian alignment to really be beneficial for whatever that you're going through, right? And then through that process, like, what are the conductive aspects of your electrical potentials other than minerals? Like you were just alluding to that with that whole notion of drink water or whatever that was called. These are just the electrolytes that are giving you electrical potential, like giving you a spark in life, right? And giving you that notion of what is the proper appropriation to your ratios. Usually, I like to say, for people that are coming into my fold, do you have a 3-to-1 potassium to sodium ratio? Because you have a sodium potassium pump within your cellular aspect that is projecting out consistently, just pumping, pumping, pumping. And that's every cell. The 70 to 150 trillion cells that we have, Lord knows we don't know exactly how many, but they've ballparked. Each one has their own proton pump from that sodium and then aspect of potassium. Now, that ratio, if you have more of a higher stress threshold, I like to do 6-to-1, right? Make sure that you have more potassium than you do sodium, but make sure that you have sodium in everything that you're consuming, right? Even if you, say, have a Coke, right? Say,
Mhm.
have something like that. Just put a little bit of sea salt in there, like very, very clean aspects to that to understand like how that generator inside that component of your cell can actually be appropriated. Now we're talking even in deeper aspects, like what is the hydration, right? So if you have a hydration plus your mineral component, my guy, we are doing something so easy for the system, and we're ultimately talking about the bio individuality of what we can call peace, right? If you have rest, right? You have your alignment of minerals, right? And then on top of that, you have circumnavigated that entirety of making sure that you have a support system when it comes down to your emotional aspect. And then on top of that, are procuring more ATP as you develop. Dude, like this is peace. Right? It's challenging at front because anything that is a struggle at front, this is the flow phase that we talked about in the previous call, it's going to be challenging, right? That's the challenge. But then after you get the minerals really dialed in, the magnesium, potassium, the sodium, the calcium, right? Understanding what those markers are. Obviously, when I work with people one to one, it's a little bit deeper, obviously, as we see that. But then you're starting to low into what is the redox and the detox, right? How are you naturally just letting things go? Right? Detox is this weird thing in our society about having to do protocols, right? Having to do this, having to do a parasite cleanse and this and that. But our bodies naturally do this. So now how can go
I
ahead.
didn't know that.
Yeah, so our bodies naturally just detox. So if you give it the best parameters, the best environment, it will do exactly what it's supposed to do. Obviously the traumas, the back end emotional conflict starts to short circuit a lot of that stuff. So it holds into the fascial tissue, which is part of the nine circuits. But when it comes down to the detox aspect, it's like, yes, there is a perfect formality to being able to do this seasonally. It's like, hey, if you did one major detox purge per year, right? Started to clean out the system for the biology to upkeep, how much of a challenge is that if you just set it and forget it? And that's one of the best parts about the redox aspect is how is hydration upticking that notion to be able to clean out the cells while you're going through that process. That's one of the biggest things about redox and detox is that you want to make sure that obviously the hydration is super super important, which comes into that fold of how you're getting the cleanest hydration possible. Yeah, it's huge.
I'm a trades guy. Um, so a lot of people who listen uh, are tradespeople, and just so I can kind of clarify it for them, and let me see if I'm on the right track with you. Like if you're running, let's say, a miter saw, and you
Nice.
use a low gauge wire that's 100 feet long, you're eventually going to burn your saw up. Now you can run it on a 100 footer with a lot bigger gauge wire, and it'll be fine. But you're like, you have to have the right amount of energy, and the only way to do that is to supply it through the proper conduit. Am I on this on the
Dude,
right?
dude, like, I love what you're doing right now because this is how kids learn from an analogy aspect. Like, from the trades component, I'm like, for me, I was like, okay, like, I had that back end thought where I was like, I don't know if I can follow, right?
Right,
Because I'm like,
right.
I have, like, I get what you're saying because I understand, like, that context. But that analogy is perfect. It's the conduit is your cell, but the environment is the signal, right? So everybody talks about, and I even teach this obviously in part of our process, like with psychoneuroimmunology, the thought is the electrical potential, the feeling is the magnetic component, right? Like we are conduits. But now, as you move to that space, now what has to be the purified version of what you're actually sending out via the signal, right? So that short circuit, what you're talking about, absolutely can be devastating if it's not to the actual end goal, right? If you're looking for something a little bit longer in the notion, it just takes a little bit of tweaking. But for what you're saying, just even in that analogy, it makes perfect sense, right? If you need the utmost energy up front, right? This is the glucose driver essentially within the brain. Like this is the reason why I'm so fascinated when people, especially like athletes that have just absurd fucking diets, right? Where they're just like, I can eat gummy bears and like bags of candy and I can still perform at like unbelievable like clips of, feats. Like it's the same concept. It's like you are the conduit. What is the feeding profile, right? So now when you understand that same aspect of what you're saying, it's just like, how are you literally either full circuiting that notion of what you need for full potential for your job to be accomplished, right? Which is as human beings, I wouldn't say our job is just to move through each day, right? It is
Right.
to at least, be present through the day and to move through and help through that process. But also at the same time, when it comes down to even just what you're saying is like, what is the more prolific power of what I need for each task, right? And now we're talking about metabolism, right? We're talking about glucose, different aspects of fatty acids, which comes down to this notion. I'm like, all right, if you see it for the circuitry that it is, what is the task at hand?
Right.
That's where it becomes really fun because if it's elongated, kind of more of like a marathon task, we got different inputs, right? And the mitochondria have a 17-day half-life. You have powerhouse of your cell to understand what your inputs are, right? So if it takes about 17 days for your mitochondria to understand that whatever you're constantly inputting, whether it's a monster, right? Whether it's like any of this other shit, it's going to start to see that as true.
Right.
Your mitochondria is going to be like, hey, like this is what we're doing, right? But if you change the inputs, the desirable output, this is just now the law of correspondence is going to fundamentally change. So I love the analogy that you're saying is because it works based off of what your output and your desired outcome looks like, right?
Right.
100%.
That makes sense. You gotta have the right amount for the task at hand.
Exactly. Exactly.
Good. Um, I forget where we were at on circuits.
But you're good, man. There's only two more. The last two. This will keep it super super simple for people. It's just the last two, the eighth and the ninth, is the fascial component. The fascial component is how you're stretching the being. This can be physical movement. It can be literally stretching just in general, because a lot of your emotional fabric is tied to your fascial tissue. Right, that is like a massive thing to alleviate. If you like, honestly, if you just literally just stretch, at least for like 30 minutes a day. You don't even have to work out. Yes, working out can build out the physique if that's something that is actually a priority to you. For me, I'm more about dexterity, agility, and moving through aspects rather than giving a shit about what my muscles look like, right? I'm not typical dude where I'm like, hey, I'm going to the gym to look awesome. I want to be durable. I wanna be durable. You're right. Yes, strength comes from a different aspect of outside of muscle strength. It comes from tendons and ligaments, right? So when your fascial tissue is dehydrated, right, based off of emotional decomposition. Go ahead.
Don't know what fascial tissue is, and I bet
Yeah.
you'll
So the fascial is like the membrane component of how muscles, right, ligaments and tendons really like talk to each other. Right? It's kind of like the like what I like to call the highway between communication channels behind how each system, within different compartmentalized aspects of our biology speak to each other. Right. And what's tough about this, the emotional landscape, this is the reason why we prioritize emotional landscape and emotional health more than anything, is because it tightens it. Right. And when it tightens it, it short circuits. Every time that I talk about when it comes down to the circuits is anytime it tightens, it short circuits. Right. So when it short circuits, it doesn't, yeah, exactly. It doesn't have the same communication channels and it's not as vibrant. But when it comes down to the fascial tissue, when it's open and it's relaxed, man, anybody that's woken up, right? And they're like, I don't want to get out of bed. I'm like, great, don't get out of bed. Stretch,
sure.
right? Like simple tricks to your mind so you can help just open up the body before you actually alleviate to the day, right? And the biggest thing about alleviation to the day is the day is going to come with its own fucking problems. It's going to go with its own challenges. Our ability to perceive them as puzzles helps us solve those, but when it comes down to that notion, especially just within the fascial aspect, how can we remain stretched, right? It's even my partner, God, she's such I every time I think about her, she's like the most amazing person on the planet. Like when I think about her, but like she has this notion of just doing like acro yoga, like being able to be so stretched out and so open, like it's something I'm new to, right? Because I love new novelty experiences, but the way that she just wants to be open. And it's something beautiful about women. They just want to be open and expressive. Like dudes are a little bit different, right? They just like, hey, let's just do this. Let's stay in this pocket. But like she has allowed me to see what it means to open up the fascial aspect of just being free, right? And that is the expression of the fascial tissue just being open and being expressive. And then you just follow this up. This is the last one before we close that up, is the signaling molecules. This is where the hormones come into place. This is where, we touched a little bit about this on the previous call, but the signaling molecules, this is the kind of notion of the self, right? Not just the self, like the self aspect of just how a person is not only just naturally appropriating like what has happened from the previous 8 circuits, but now they're realizing what can I optimize, right? Like what can I actually put into play? And we're in a society, especially right now, where everything is so available, right? So now we just have to pinpoint exactly what that looks like, what your derived and desired income, or not income, excuse me, outcome looks like, and then we just go from there and we just have a blast. So those are the 9 circuits kind of in a gist. And obviously we go in deeper detail, but like those 9 really give you a sense of completeness, and that's just wholeness in our aspect of holonomics.
That's pretty fabulous. It's interesting. They started making construction workers on commercial job sites stretch. And they said it was,
Wow,
but yeah, and
that's cool.
all us old guys were not happy about it. But now I'm starting to understand. Like, I mean, you can have, you know, tissue damage, but
Mhm.
uh, that fascial opened up would make you more receptive to things and uh I don't know. I'm still wrapping my brain around it.
Dude, it's well, the one thing that I can say just on that, it's intracellular hydration. So how hydration can move across your body. That like people don't like they realize this is what's super, super fascinating is they're just like, hey, like let's just drink water.
Mhm.
And I'm like, now imagine if you had structured water from a spring, right? Naturally, effervescent from that notion, and you just stretched that cellular potential. You remember all of our electrical charge is based off of our cellular potential, right? So that membrane that sits on the cell, however it holds charge, is how it's going to be, bro. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how we go about it. So if we have, and this is a universal. This is what I love about working in universal aspects, not the subjective takes solely, even though that is kind of more of the emotional components. Like obviously we work through that too, but the universal mechanism of a cell has to have that hydration, because once it has it and then you stretch out, you're actually going to feel even more alive when you stretch rather than just feeling like, oh, I'm sore consistently. And it's so important for people that are our age right now, I think, than ever before. I tell people, I'm like, look, before you even get into like a major workout regimen, like that's awesome. Like if you're trying to build physique, don't deny it, but stretch your being. Make sure that you are so elastic, right? You're so agile within your body before that happens. That's like one of my big takes.
That blows my mind about yoga too. Now it has me looking at it different.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like in watching my wife in yoga pants.
Dude,
I really have on
that's a
yoga.
great sight, man. It's one of the
I want
best
to kiss
sights for
the
a
guy
man,
who
man. Yoga pants, one of the greatest things that has been invited into
yes.
our landscape for guys. I'm not gonna lie.
Now, like, even for me, I'm curious, of the name holonomics. What is that like a derivative of, holistic and I don't know, can you explain that to me?
It can be. I haven't found anything on the etymology aspect. Just from holonomics, from a Greek standpoint, just means the whole. Right? So
Okay.
from the law standpoint, natural law, there's 2 governing laws. That is the law of repetition, law of association, and we do that with Hebbian learning, right? Obviously, as you consistently do something, something is going to be wired or quote unquote hardwired based off of like previous association. And those associations that we have is holonomic brain theory. Whatever spatial devices that we have, depictions or holograms, are going to evoke some form of emotion. It's like it's weird. It sounds weird, but it's like you could literally go to your car before you like open up the door and you can have an emotional response based off of just like the outside of your key. Like that is holonomic brain theory. The spatial recognition of what you have within the association of depictions is going to now start to imprint on your being. So holonomics in its notion is the representation of what is the law of whole through a repetitional aspect of science. So like I said, I diverted a little bit to that in the previous call where I said, "Oh, it was one thing." I tend to get ahead of myself when I get excited when I talk with people, but that notion is holonomics just is Greek for the whole law, and law via science needs to have repetition, right? So if we didn't have consistency, obviously, in this life wouldn't exist, right? We wouldn't be able to understand what normalcy is to our baseline of hedonic habitation. Um, so yeah, yeah. Hopefully that answers that question.
So is that what we're seeing when we see like repeating patterns or
Yes.
oh, okay.
Yeah, so we're talking about also reticular activating system, right? Which is part of the brain where it's just like, hey, if you start thinking about something, start thinking about something, our brain is a receiver, right? So when we get into neuroscience, this is what I love about like, helping people that have gone through massive trauma, especially recovery, because like I said in the previous call, like my quote unquote addiction wasn't really an addiction. It was a compulsion, right? It was an all consuming thing for about a third of my life where I was just like, I could not function throughout my entire day without substances, right? But I was like, I have to reverse engineer this somehow. And I had to look at how the brain projects and receives information. And when you go into that notion, the brain is just a receiver. So if
So
it's receiving based off of repetition, what do I have to repetitiously give it? Right? And I had to give it some different inputs, right? And then I started to understand the cell biology, and it changed how I looked at just quote unquote substances. And I've never had a derivative or drive for substances since, right? It could because you can understand how to extract what those substances could possibly give you through natural aspects, right? And yeah, for me, when it came down to how the brain receives information, it really changed what I wanted to teach people because recovery, um, in all aspects, whether it's trauma, whether it's substance, usually those go one in in the same notion. They usually are in the same boat. How can we teach people to understand the objective terms, the studies, right? And also how the brain receives information so we can just change those dials. So those circuitries, right? Those circuits can fundamentally change for people so they can live just an authentic life, right? Because anybody that's going through recovery or going through substance abuse, even if they're hearing this, like I have so much respect for you because I was there, right? I was there. You can change. It's just you have to get the proper information for your inputs on a repetitious notion and just have that the accountability essentially to make sure that that sticks. And
no,
you're going to consistently go through some challenges and you may fail, but failure is a part of success, man. It's really just about making sure people are really understanding of how the brain receives information rather than projects. Our heart is a projector, our brains are receivers. So when we can teach that properly, people can start to see things differently.
now see that's something I wanted to being that you touched on the reticular, in which I figured we would get to that.
Sure.
The okay, you go, you buy a new car, and then all of a sudden you see that car everywhere.
Yeah.
That is not a coincidence.
Nope.
The brain through the reticular. Is there another? This reticular something. But anyway, the
Reticular
part of
activating
your
system. So
yeah,
RAS. Yep. Yep.
yeah. What it does is it says, hey. I keep looking at this car, I like it, and so the brain perceives that as being important.
Mhm,
And so now you buy it, you got it, now you see them everywhere.
mhm,
How many, let's say, I bought a truck, give whatever make or model, but how many Cadillacs did you see today? You didn't notice them because your brain doesn't care. And so I
exactly.
think that's important for the audience to understand when you're speaking of that. To me, that helped me make sense of it.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a filtration system. So like when we talk about the holonomic component is like you have to look at those levels of awareness, and that's level 2. Like you have a perceptual lens. Once you clear that out, like it sees like you can breathe differently through your own foresight, right? But like exactly what you're talking about is like what you focus on has to grow. There's no question to that. And what is so fascinating about the amygdala, the hypothalamus, like those components within the reticular activating system, that the emotional center of the brain, is it's just going to constantly give you feedback of what you give it because your brain is a receiver. Your brain isn't a projector. That's the biggest thing that I love to not just challenge people, because I don't need to challenge people. Like if they get challenged, like that's fine. But like the science is very, very sound on this. Your heart is the generator. Right. It's 1,000 times more magnetic in its projection than anything else that your brain comes from. But your brain is receiving based off the informational lens, the confirmation bias that you've built on your past. So if you are so head over heels based off your convertible or whatever the fuck you just bought, it's just going to keep showing up. And then you're going to be like, wow, this is null and void because I already have this.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
So yeah, it's beautiful.
So you really do get what you're looking for.
Yeah, dude, 100%. Like, cause your brain is gonna receive what you're giving it attention, right? So it's like, what I have so much fun with people because we clock around. I've obviously done it myself because I'm a human being, but like people that I work with, I'm like, dude, your emotional landscape, like most of the shit that you're dealing with, you're not actually dealing with. Your brain's just trying to process it.
Right.
Your brain's trying to process what's it's received because what it received was something from the past when you weren't even cognizant. We talked about this in the previous call. It's like your brain from a neocortex aspect, which is 40% of the brain volume that you have, is literally 0.006% of your entire awareness. That's fucking crazy paradoxical on that in itself just makes you, like, for me personally, I can't speak for anybody else, makes me so fascinated with life. How is the biggest portion of my brain the least amount of awareness that I have? Like it, right? Like it's just weird. So it's like, how can you not just enjoy the weirdness of life for people just expressing themselves as they move through their own weird formalities and their challenges and their struggles, right? Like to me, it's like, oh wow, what an exciting invitation. But then you have the lower components, specifically of your subcortical faculties, are just receiving everything that you've just inputted. And you're constantly inputting as soon as you wake up. Shit, you see your bathroom, your toothbrush, your TV, whatever the fuck it is that you keep seeing, you're going to consistently keep seeing that in repetition. And that's where these laws come into to true form, is like, how are you navigating this life? And this is where, like I said, like trauma really becomes the definition of a lot of people's identity, right? But if we can shift that and we can shift those associated meanings based off of what we're seeing and what our brains are receiving, our hearts can open, bro. And when our hearts are open, man, like, dude, the hugs are different. The food is amazing. The senses are amazing, bro. I literally had a team meeting with us, and we made like this pappardelle, like spring pasta in the middle of fucking winter with like pot roast, and we just had a great time. And it just tasted so amazing because we had the people. People were receiving it. So it's just like that's what my I hope with not just my work, but the work just in neuroscience can help shape, is that the neuroscience is not just teaching the brain, it's teaching the nervous system, it's teaching the heart, right? It's teaching the gut access. It's teaching everything that we can really truly be aligned to appreciate the people that are in our lives.
Mhm. Now, I wanted to talk with you about that as far as, like, how, perception because I like how you said that the reticular is like a filter,
Hmm.
and so we already have, like, a perception that goes to our amygdala based on that filter, and so then the perception therefore gives us emotion. Am I don't know if I'm explaining that right
Dude,
or
elementary life, that's perfect. Yeah, I can give you like a higher echelon experience, but like perfect, like on an elementary level, perfect, perfect.
yeah, that's what I was like, how do you because it blew my brain for a minute. I had to sit with it. I was like,
Sure.
let me sit on this for a little bit. Now you had talked about THI briefly.
Yeah,
So what
yeah.
is the Holonomic Institute
Dude,
and what does it do?
bro, I love this outfit because of the people that we work with. Like our team, like I said, I identify with really anything other than being a self-proclaimed anarchist. Because if you look obviously in the definition of anarchy, it's about peace and cooperation with people and, movements towards, those notions of peace. But my faith is really refined in the following in the principles of Christ, right? And how Christ moved through, especially when you study not only just the Bible, but also just different terms and stories. It was just like it's almost a damn near immaculate human being, right? And for me, I was like, okay, like I'm not trying to be perfect because I'm not Christ, but I would really like to strive for that, right? So when I brought that into that account, and then we had, our team really kind of refined in that, it was just like, okay, how can we really put together ourselves into a space where we can create, quote unquote, a container for people to really show up, obviously to their leisure and obviously to where they're at, for success. Right. So the Holonomic Institute gives you a curriculum or conscious college, the theory, right? The practice and everything that is expansive, but then also the container for people to consistently show up to make sure that they are on task, right, with what they're trying to attune to. And for me, that notion of faith really had to be embedded in that because you got to show up, man. Like you got to show up. Like if you show up, I swear to you, if you show up with the people that you most resonate with, like your whole life is going to change. Like, dude, some of the craziest fucking stories that I've heard are they're so beautiful, man. Like I have my own life as you do, and it's so beautiful to have your own life, but for me, I get so much joy, sympathetic joy just from other people winning and living their life based off of just some of the teachings that are corroborated throughout time. And the THI just gives you that whole aspect. You get the curriculum, you can understand the concepts of how your brain moves, how your heart generates, but then also you can show up consistently throughout the week and the month to make sure that you're getting the essential nurturing aspect. And we also have a community care director that just loves you, right? Constantly reaching out to you just to make sure that you're taken care of and that you are loved, right? Love is one of the greatest things that lowers entropy, which is the process of disorderly chaos, right? One of my favorite things about science is that if you can lower chaos and that notion of entropy, it gives you a sense of overwhelming anarchy within the being. And anarchy has just constantly been just given this shit shovel of what the definition means. And what it really means is peace and cooperations. And as within correspondence, peace within, you can give that without. And we've just mastered that notion of having that structure where it's like, hey, if you show up on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, possible Thursday for women, right? Friday, Friday for more business aspect. It's like you are going to have a fucking phenomenal experience, and with that 97% success rate, it really just shows, like, what it means to build that out. The Holonomic Institute is just making sure that you're just not getting just curriculum. You're not just getting information, you're getting touch points like we alluded to earlier. You're getting to the point where we can really genuinely get into the heart, m- moment to moment. Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing. It really
Yeah.
and it's interesting. I can't remember if I talked about this with you or not. Um, but like I studied a lot of different religions, and and I've even studied Satanism, and chaos is satanic principle. Chaos.
Wow. I did not know that.
Interesting you brought that up because that's
Yeah.
tends to fuck us up.
Yeah.
The opposite of that, well, I don't know if it would be exact opposite, but love is definitely important. Now, as I thought about it, because I grew up, uh, well, as everybody knows, I grew up Jehovah Witness.
Well, I know that now. I had no idea.
But I don't necessarily agree with many religions, what they put out that Jesus was saying. I think when he was talking about paradise or heaven, that he was talking about finding that within yourself.
Yes.
And so this is why this makes a lot of sense to me because I've came to that realization more recently, actually within a few months. And I was, oh, well, that makes a lot more sense to me than, okay, I die and I go to heaven. Oh, I could see the energy being released or something like that. But that I really like what you're saying, and it's really hitting certain keys for me.
That's huge. That's huge. And the one thing that I can add on that is Jesus, like, obviously, if you study just not only the rhetoric, the books, like, very opposed to the organization of religion, right?
Yes.
Where it's and if you want to talk about an anarchist to a true sense,
Yes.
study Jesus Christ.
Yes.
Like, dude, one of the baddest asses ever. Like, dude, I'm like, I don't like, the more I'm like, shit, dude, I'm more enthralled by that path because it just shakes your core. But also, it also resembles a lot of your values. And we teach this obviously within our curriculum in Conscious College, but it's like it really reaffirms exactly what the fuck you wanna be about life, right? Why you wanna be a peaceful being, regardless of the crazy shit that's out. Like, dude, literally, I live 2 blocks, city blocks from Minneapolis, and it's a hotbed for crazy shit right now. Like,
It is.
Minneapolis is just a fucking I've termed this, and I don't care about the backlash of it. It's just been a butthole of America right now. It's just been a lot, dude. But it's like but if you take into account what it means for you to go within, it's gonna be the care that you're gonna give without, regardless of what the fuck is being told via any outlets. And that's, I think, what the Bible in itself does a great job. It tells a story of a person, i.e. Jesus Christ, how they're moving through a landscape of just absolute turmoil. Right, because nature in its essence before our focus is naturally not coherent. It's just not. It's disorderly. Until we focus, until we're actually in that state of mind, like, we can't make anything of what we truly wanna bring into life, unless this process is consistent, right? Because you can have great moments of relief, no doubt. No doubt, but when it's a consistent practice, like, you're walking with a higher power, and that is spirit. That is God moving through you because yeah, man, I get a little crossed up in my words when it talks about faith because, like, I love God so much, but, like, when when you're moving through that notion, it just makes everything make more sense. Like, it makes all this crazy shit just, like, be less noisy, right? It just makes it more quiet, and then you can actually hone in on what really matters most.
I think it was funny about what you said about Jesus being a badass because a lot of people
Yeah,
forget he fashioned a whip and
dude,
beat motherfuckers with that shit.
dude, dude. Yeah,
Oh,
dude, and I mean, think about it, it's like when you get the stories of, like and this is that notion of, like, when you're bleeding out to the point where your blood is water. Like, I'm like, "Dude, dude, dude." Like, I'm like, what hits me most, and I'm not on a spiritual jaunt for anybody, like, I'm not a converter by any means, but when people say it's like, "Hey, we're waiting for God to come back for to tell us what the next steps are," and it's like, "Hey, we already missed that step." Right? Somebody came back and proved it for us, and we fucked up. Like, and I was like, "Yo, yo, yo." I was like, "Dude, I don't need any more reaffirmation in my faith." I was like, "Yo, just teach me what biology needs so I can understand psychological associations and safety and do my best to bring people to their freedom, their liberation within them."
that's because when I was trying to figure out like what this podcast was all about, and I actually did a thing about it, a podcast about it with myself.
Cool.
But
Solo cast.
yeah, it was a monologue. But I came down to three pillars, and those three pillars are family, community, and spirituality. And so this ties in perfectly with those pillars
Yeah,
and what you're doing.
yeah. Dude, I love it, and this is the synchronization of why these things are possible. Because I have 4, right?
Mm.
Right? It's literally faith, family, right? And that notion of moving through your own fruition and then also your own finances, right? Like, obviously, because I work with people, obviously, in the financial landscape too. So that 4 pillars, like, absolutely. So, like, those coordinations help bolster that network. And the network is just your brain receiving the information. The more that you connect with these people, you're like, holy fuck, what else can we do? Right? Because we don't know. We don't know, especially just based off of your commitment to doing something across the table, who that actually reaches. Right. And it's not even by my voice, it's literally God's voice through me. When I got to learn that, I was like, I get to surrender and I get to be an instrument, and it's way more fun doing that than trying to figure out how the fuck I
Yeah.
have to, like, pinpoint and just narrate everything. I was like, "Nah, man, just show up, do your thing, just give some simple guidelines of how this can be amazing, and God will fucking do the amazing work through you." And it's bro, it's the greatest thing that I've ever learned, because when you have those pillars, those structures, like, you really embolden your values. And when you embolden your character values with your action values of what you're doing, it makes you more energy efficient. And when we teach energy literacy within high vibe holonomics, it keeps you tight. It doesn't keep you secluded or away from things. It keeps you tight. Keeps you to what matters most. And what matters most is really about how you're energetically hygienic to how you move through the world. So I love it, bro. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm learning. I'm learning.
That's it. You
Yeah.
and me both, brother. You and me both. Yeah, a lot of people like to give me fucking kudos and testimonials, but I'm constantly learning, man.
Yeah.
Constantly. If I wasn't learning, I feel like I would be missing the whole point of life.
Yeah. If you're not here trying to learn, then you're missing the point.
Totally.
You're missing
Totally. Totally.
a full proceeds the master.
Love it.
Just like
Dude, what a great sentence. That's awesome.
no. When I heard that, I
Love
was
it.
like, my God, I love that.
That is
Because
awesome.
you're not I hate it when people say, I know. Oh my God. No, no, you don't fucking know.
Dude.
I'm a master at doing this, and you just got here
Yeah.
yesterday, and you're gonna fucking tell me how you know. Bullshit. It gets me.
Dude, I love it, man. I was having this conversation with one of my buddies not too long ago where I was on a podcast. I've been on a decent amount of broadcasts, and I was just like I listened to one of the um one of the hosts in one of these podcasts just be like, "Oh, I know. I know." And I was like, "Well, then why the fuck are you interviewing me?" Like, what? Like, I'm like, "Yo, like, this is supposed to just be us just having fun, right?" Like, if people get called to work with you, great. If not, doesn't matter. God's in control. But I was like, I resonate so heavily. I got chills when you said that because I was like, yeah, I've had that experience. I was like, knowing and comprehending, understanding and comprehending are two distinctively different things, right? And having that knowing is a deeper belief component, but comprehending how you navigate things is such an art form, right? And most people don't know how to do that. So I appreciate you saying that massively.
There was someone that I respected a lot, taught me a lot of things, and he said to me, "Do you know the difference between a rookie and a professional?" I said, "No, what's that?" And he said, "It's not fucking up. It's knowing how to fix your fuck up."
Respect.
Yeah,
Respect.
yeah. I was like, "Oh,
Respect.
interesting."
If
Yeah.
I had a caveat to that, because I had a conversation recently, is just also being quiet about it, right? Like, just and I'm not saying being like, oh, non-expressant, just being silent about being like, hey, I'm gonna take my licks, right?
Mhm,
And I'm gonna learn and I'm gonna get better. Like, that's the only thing that I could think of too. But yeah, I love that. I really
mm,
love that.
yeah. Now, back to your origin story.
Yeah,
Um,
dude.
yeah, like, I am curious what drew you to this? I know you like to geek out on things, so.
Sure. I mean, honestly, it was just operating systems, right? So if you have like if you look at it from a universal standpoint, like if you have a brain, right? If you got a heart, right? Obviously, a gut can be added to that notion within the endocrine system too. How do we most and efficiently access that on a consistent basis? Like, that was, like, my biggest thing because I was like, "What" anybody that's possibly, like, listening to this or just in general, it's like, how what is making us do shit? What is making us do anything? And then I realized it's influence, and then obviously, I started to develop what is the hit list? What are these influences that are creating these networks within our neural patterns, right? And there has been a copious amount of teachers, some that have just been silenced, that obviously I'm not gonna speak on, but the neuroscience behind this has been so fucking obvious. It's been so obvious for a
Yeah.
very long time. Now, how are you receiving information? How are you generating information? And if you have the sense of just general like love, to lower the entropy and the chaos of the world, how is that protruded? One of my favorite quotes, and this is like old news for a lot of people, is like when there's tragedy or things that are happening, look for the people that are helping, right? That is the biggest thing. And now if it's more in, I wouldn't say an isolated, but more so a secluded place where people can fully express themselves, like, dude, how much change can happen just from one person? We've seen that throughout the world. Most of it is not like ideal to our set standard that we have within ourselves. But also at the same time, I divert to the notion that I don't know anything that other people are going through. All I know is that can I help you get to where you want to go to? And that's my pathway. So for me on that origin story, it's just really I was like, dude, I'm so lost in substances. Like, dude, I was fuck man. I lost my sense of who I thought was a being very young, right? I got hooked on drugs when I was 17, and I was like, "Hey, once I hit MDMA and I hit ecstasy, I was like, how do I do this consistently? How do I do this consistently?" And it just hit a pocket at that time or 2008, 2009, where the epidemic of Adderall and Ritalin shit really popped off, and it was that time frame, and I caught the wave. Like, and I did a really good job, masking that, and I lost baseball scholarships, right? I lost opportunities to, go to the next echelons of my own athleticism, and, you have to revert back to that and clear that out accordingly, but that was the biggest thing for me. I just realized I was like, on a universal scale, what do people need? Right. And it wasn't just inclusiveness, like that's awesome, great. But also that's also very accommodating to certain things. But what do people need? And they just genuinely need to be loved. Right. And how can I do that through a practice? Right? How can I do that? And then I found flow and I was like, holy fuck, this is exhilarating. Like, it is exhausting because I'm not gonna lie, going through flow is taxing. It just is on a neurotransmitters level. But like teaching people the appropriate steps of how to go through that, it's so much fucking fun. And seeing people just really dial that in, um, that has just helped me understand what and why I'm fucking doing what I'm doing. And to do that, to being like, oh my god, I don't have to drink from a bottle, I don't gotta take anything from a bottle, I don't gotta get a prescription, I can literally access this with my own awareness. That's when I got hooked, and I was like, how do I help people do that? And it's been fucking amazing, dude. It's been so cool.
I tell you, that's with all the I feel like our healthcare system is set up to be a sick care system where they get paid off of making you sick because they just give you more drugs to combat the side effects of the crap they're giving you to begin with. Now, I'm not saying people don't need certain things. Maybe their body isn't producing properly, but to know that we can access that, I think we just forgot how to do it
Totally.
because we're so out of balance with nature.
Mm.
It's I just feel that like the closer I get to finding a balance with nature, the better I start feeling.
Well, it's honestly the resonance point. I mean, like, I've never heard anybody take their shoes off, put their feet in the grass, and they haven't felt worse. Right? It's just like, dude, like, when you connect, like, it really is, and this is the reason why I love working with people who have had substance abuse issues, is it's a connection issue.
Mhm.
Right? It's like, what can we get you to connect? So when you connect, you can hear the higher calling. What is your obedience and what you need to do? Because like that was the biggest thing. I was like, and you hear a lot of people that have come from, I wouldn't say just this background, but just this understanding. It's like, okay, well, I've surrendered my life where a higher power is going to orchestrate if I'm just obedient. I'm like, yeah, massive respect. I didn't know what the fuck that meant. I was like, "I'm just gonna keep doing my shit based off of my neural networks," and it was constantly just even referring to what you're saying, not only just out of balance, not harmonized with anything that actually made any sense with nature. But when you look at nature, she's the perfect aspect of polarity. Ferocious bitch, right?
Mhm.
She's relentless, dude, ruthless, but the most loving, kind, caring, nurturing thing that we can ever experience. How do we tap into that? Where you can understand both polarity, because obviously as dudes, if we get too docile, like we're not really beneficial for anything out in the world. But if we get too aggressive, right? Then we're not playing into the safety of the people that we're trying to take care of, and that's going to start to cause problems too. So, like, it's really about understanding how we move through nature's code, right? And then, obviously, if you're just pumping in, things that are not natural, right? Obviously, people can make the argument. I've had so many conversations about this. So, like, oh, if you're drinking alcohol, that's natural. Like, yeah, it's a natural fermentation process. No doubt, right? But also at the same time, what is the consumption level taking away from your actual identity, right? when you're
Right.
identifying with what has been presented to you. So, and you can say that in massive other aspects too, but it's just like when your harmonization point comes down to how am I being presented? How am I actually showing up for fucking people? Like that is going to show massive scales. And this is just coming from my own personal experience because when you go through a near death experiences or like I said, experiences, because I've gone through multiple. I'm like, dude, you just fine print what it means to really just give a shit about people. Where I'm like, dude, and it's a trained skill, right? When you're just going through whatever you're going through to just divert to what people need without neglecting yourself. Bro, that is the superpower where you literally could be like, I'm here for you, but I'm never gonna fucking divert from my own sovereignty. Like, bro, that is just a fucking next level superpower. And that's our hopes and what we teach people. It's like you can obviously be there for people, right? But also, are you so filled to your own being where it's like you never have to compromise. Like that's the biggest thing for us. And for me, I've found that on a consistent basis and it's dude, it's freedom. It's freedom. So being an example of that correspondence as within, so without, hopefully everybody can see that around us. And I think we do a pretty good job.
So, Katie handed me a question.
Nice. I love it.
Yeah. He's like, "Can you ask about heart-brain coherence?"
Fuck yes. Absolutely you can. Yeah. What's all right, let's break that down because there's so much to that. What would be the necessary question for what are you looking for in that question? Because there's so much to that.
Yeah, I'm not sure because I have never
Sure.
heard of it until she said that. So,
Dude, yeah, let's have some fun. All right, so let's do some basics. So your
okay.
heart is a generator, right? It's 1,000 times more of a magnetic push than anything that your brain can emit because your brain is a receiver, right? This is the reason why how you receive information from what you're actually looking for is going to coincide, excuse me, with the networks that you have built in your brain. These are called complexes or neural networks, just basic in neuroscience. But your heart is the generator of how you feel based off of what you're either going through or what you are as a being. Now, if you align those two, now what is the definition of manifestation? Right? So if you align your receptive components to your brain, you focus that coherence to your brain, that magnitude of what your desire has to come back to you via law of natural cadence, right? That's just called correspondence, right? As within, so without. So now your heart as the generator, what do you really want? And your want is usually going to come to your mind before it comes to your heart, right? Let's be honest, right? But when you become more clear on your scaffolding, right, as a being, it's going to start taking away from worldly desires, right? Worldly desires. I had a friend reach out to me yesterday and they were like, what are you most excited about based off of like your values? Because we're in the process of CC26, which is taking our team through conscious college through 2026. I just was like, I've got everything. I've had everything. I've attained everything that I've ever desired. Now it's coming back into the heart space of what I can do for other people. And that brain heart coherence is being like, instead of being pulled from the reception of your networks, is being aligned with where your heart's at with what you want to do. Right. That brain and heart coherence, dude, literally, I thought I had it around me. I do have the app. The brain and heart coherence is the heart map coherence. You can actually literally structurally measure those volts between how your brain and your heart are talking to each other, dude. It's one of the
Are you
most
kidding
beautiful
me?
things on this planet. And you literally get to see how your heart's desires are rather than the receptive desires of your brain. Because most of your brains are lower density, right? Their lust, right? Their compatibility, their apathy, right? on that notion, but like when it comes down to brain and heart coherence, it's really about settling into what it is this space. And we teach this through our clearings, obviously, but it's really about tapping into this space more than this, because this is the receiver, this is the generator. So keeping it in the elementary terms.
So even people with, say, anxiety, they're still manifesting something.
Sure.
So,
100%.
uh, anxiety is still a manifestation, like, I don't know. When I get anxiety, I feel it in, like, my heart. I feel it in my chest. Now, is that something that is something to do with your heart, or is it, um
Energy. Yeah. So
Yeah.
so not necessarily just the heart, it's just the amalgamation of too much energy in one space. Like you need proper disbursement. So if we took you through a cut through or we took you through a simple technique to drop into that space, it would disperse evenly so energy is properly appropriated to other parts of the body. Right? Anxiety, and I get a lot of fucking flack for this, and I understand why, is not fucking real. It's not. It's a term that we've put on congested energy in one spot, and it's usually in our heart. It's why we get heart palpitations, shit like that. But when you can draw into that space, which is the hardest fucking thing to do, honestly, once you, like if when people work with me, we do the hardest things up front for the first 6 weeks, right? Because once you get really acquainted to that and understand the pattern and the hedonic adaptation, you can disperse a lot of what we perceive as anxiety. But it's just a congestion of how we can disperse it, but when we focus on that space, which is paradoxical, which is what I love about nature, if you have so much congestion in your heart and it feels stressful or it feels like tight, is a better way of saying it. If you focus on this area before dispersing it, all it takes is just those loving thoughts. This is called body grounding, really about putting yourself into that space, and that energy will naturally just over time, in a short amount of time, will disperse to actually not be congested into this space. This is just the most powerful. The heart is the most powerful part of the entire fucking being. That's why it feels like we have heart attacks and shit like that, is because we are neglecting this piece of our being, right? And if we operated from that on a consistent aspect, we would understand what congestion of the energy is, and we would not call it anxiety, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's almost psychosomatic to
100%, 100%, dude. Yeah, I mean, from the studies that I've learned from Charles Hanal and a lot of really uh deep co-creators prior to like the fucking 1950s, is the psychosomatic notion is, and this was corroborated even through from flow, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, we talked about a little bit in our last call, is that her conscious notion is just our attentive pin light, right? So everything that is accumulated is all energetic, right? So if it gets bogged into one spot, it's going to talk about what? Pain, inflammation, right?
Right.
So in that notion of flow, right? This is the reason why we talk about the 9 circuits, is that if you're dealing with them all in kind of unison, there is no pain. The pain is actually just a challenge and a lesson from the struggle phase that we have from the flow, right? The flow cycle. Other than that, it's not bogged down shit from the past. This is the reason why you have the mega curators of consciousness out there, like the Tony Robbins and the Dean Graziosis, all these guys, because I'm like, they've mastered this notion of how to move through the systematic ways of flowing energy through the system, right? But for anxiety purposes, it's really become dude, it sucks to say this, but it has been for a long time a systematic way of you being prescribed to take something. And
Right.
that's really most ailments, to be honest with you. So once we can shift that and we can do it relatively quick with practice, that doesn't become a part of your lexicon. Doesn't become a part of how you develop your language and how you speak.
Quite fascinating to me. Like,
Yeah,
because I'm just learning all this. Like,
dude,
like
you're in a great place, dude. Being
Uh,
being being a deer in the headlights kind of vibe is when I get into those places, some of my most surrendered moments. Because 'cause I'm like, I get compliments and people will be like, "Hey, man, you sound cool. This sounds awesome." But I'm like, I relish in those moments where I literally am almost like an imbecile. I don't know. I love to relish in what can be possible to help betterment the other people around me. If I was to protrude myself as, like, if I knew it all, like, it wouldn't be beneficial to other people that are like yourself still learning this process. But yeah, you understanding your neural networks, understand the association, the etymology of words, how we're actually really moving through this landscape, like it's everything to me, humbly. And then obviously we can get into deeper things like law and shit like that, where that can really blow a lot of people's minds off of the lid, man. But
I'm already
I've
at time.
selectively
I'm
stayed in
already
my lane, bro. Yeah.
uh, it's so interesting that these things have probably been known for thousands and thousands of years,
Mm.
especially like Eastern medicine and the way that they dealt with things is way, way different than how we
Mhm.
deal with them in the West. Well, actually, that was all created by, I believe it was Rock,
Sure.
but yeah, I had this one statement I wanted to run by you. It's is that nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God.
Mm,
I
fucking
don't know if
beautiful,
you've
man.
heard that before.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so beautiful.
what's your take on that?
Dude, like I love simplicity. Like our motto here is "Do simple best." And the simplicity of that is fucking beautiful. Like, damn, like if you what I love, and for some reason, and correct me if I'm wrong, that reminds me of Henry David Thoreau. Um, is a lot of his work just made life in its notion of spirituality simple in its own context of how you observe it. And for me, that's all I look for every single day is like, how can I make the beautiful things simple? And it is really through gratitude. And that statement, what you just said, is absolute gratitude. Like
Right,
100% gratitude. It's a gratitude just for what God has provided for us, because it's what we try to make things of being real really aren't real.
right. Yeah,
They're just not. And then what is truly, what you can say, held fast, within our being, that's what really matters. And that's where, like, the feeling gets involved. And this is the reason why I love teaching, not only just meditation, visual, we call it conscious integration, is because that is your time with God. Like imagine, dude, like imagine like you're waking up or going to sleep and being like, hey, I'm talking to the Father, the all creator. I'm spending time with dad. Like, I got a dad, I'm sure you've had a dad, working through that. I'm like, to me, I love it. I was like, "This is awesome." And I was like, "But the All Father, right? Like, the All Creator, regardless of how you spin it, I don't give a fuck how people go about it. I don't really care."
me
But for me, like, I'm like, what it's almost like the grand orchestrator of life, God being like, "Oh my god, my son is excited to see
too.
it." And to me,
Yeah,
like, that's how I take it in. I'm like, "Fuck yeah." Like,
yeah,
my dad's excited to see me. How do we do this? And then it's pure manifestation outside of the new age fucking doctrine woo-woo shit. Like, it doesn't
yeah,
have like, dude, there's scientifical aspects, and we talked about this, in our last call, is like the preemptive components to even just biblical markers are neuroscience. Right? Be transformed by the renewal of your mind, right? So I'm like, how would I wanna be transformed if I didn't go to God? Like, that was my creation, right? Like, that's it. So it's so cool, and it's like, I love what that statement, what you shared, because 'cause I'm like, dude, obvious. Yeah,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, pay attention to what really is palpable, what is tangible, through your experience. Absolutely. Because everything else is not real. Right.
You were saying about keeping it simple, and uh, I got to relate this to you. Is uh, I was way looking too much at the Minnesota crap and all the other crap
Sure.
going on in the world. I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm just feeling terrible, terrible, doom scrolling. Like, this is bullshit. This is So yesterday, started listening to 50s music all day and didn't touch the world at all. And you know what? I laughed. I felt great. Felt amazing. Because there's nothing very difficult about 50s music. Not a whole lot of lessons. It's just about love and being humans. And, you know, it's just simple. There's not a whole bunch of crap in there that is being like the people are trying to project onto you. Or
Right. And we're talking in that notion of just association,
Mhm.
right? Where it's like
Right.
it's not just simple times, but it's also what is going to correlate to what is most beneficial to the system, right? And we can call this body doubling. The biggest thing that I've learned in neuroscience is the greatest thing that is for yourself is another person, but also the worst thing for yourself is another person. Right, and the insights of other people that, especially if it has a violent notion to it, is gonna be so erratic to your nervous system. I don't give a fuck who you think you are. It's going to. Whether you think it's justified or not, doesn't matter. Like, this is where you get into, the heart math solution, specifically on what Katie was talking about. There's a book dedicated to brain-heart coherence. Like, it doesn't matter if your emotions are justified or not. Like, if it justifies to the perceptual lens that you have, your nervous system is going to take a hit, but you just taking a back seat. And this is the reason I posted this on Facebook earlier. Like, I live 2 blocks from Minneapolis, and I'm like, my whole life is peace,
Right.
all of it. Like, I'm
Right.
not deterred by any of the shit going on because I've justified this where I was like, I lived in Los Angeles. I saw the black and brown or the black and brown wars where it's just like the street shit like that happened at that time. I've seen a lot of stuff in my life. I haven't partaken, but I've seen a lot. But for me, when it came down to that notion, I have that choice. Right, I can literally be in like, I'm so fucking enthralled by this and just wreck my entire fucking system, or I can choose what is the true authority, which is God, right? Giving me that life and just realizing this is a theater regardless. Yes, it's fucked up that, people have to go through what they're having to go to possibly lose their lives, through their own justification. Like nobody genuinely deserves that, but I still have my choice. Right? I have to choose that because if I don't choose that, I'm just as good as the rebel rousers that are out there trying to stir up political and emotional opinion that really doesn't get anywhere.
On
Right.
both sides.
100%.
Doesn't matter which side. That's what
100%.
I just wrote a piece for Substack, and it was about choices and
Mhm.
why they matter. And I gave a illustration about something that happened around here. Uh, Two guys got in a fight, both young guys. One guy gets killed. It's something guys have been doing for thousands of years. Get drunk and fight.
Yeah.
In this
Yeah.
fight, a guy died, and so now his wife and then the two wives are related somehow. But now you got a guy that's dead and another one that's sitting in jail, probably for a long time, with a family and this and that. And then I also tied that into Charlie Kirk. I tied it into Renee Good, and
Yeah.
that all these are about your choices. You you make that choice, and if you know that there's going to be a consequence. So you should really, really think about what your consequence is when you're making your choice, because it's going to come.
100%. 100%. And the precursor to that, like, I think what has helped us navigate that is like what is the internal landscape, like what are the neural networks prior to that, so you can have a better Not justification to what's happening outside of yourself, justification to what's actually happening internally, and that's just the law of correspondence. So it's like, dude, I love what you're saying, because one of the biggest things that has happened to me, especially just being quote unquote from Minneapolis, not really from Minneapolis, but like how cities deter themselves, technically from that metropolitan area. Like I've been asked questions about my opinion, and I'm like, I reserve the right to not have an opinion, because I don't. I don't. I genuinely don't. I'm like, this is life happening in its own way. Right. And it's like there's been so much atrocities that have happened prior to without documentation. The fact that we just have so much access to be able to see every fucking thing to deter us from what our actual decisions are, it just doesn't make sense to me. And I'm like, I'm not saying I'm super novel on this, but I'm like, all you have to do is study a major historical war to realize that we didn't have access to our phones like that. We didn't. We didn't. And those atrocities, my goodness,
No
they're
one would
far,
ever know them.
yeah, far, far beyond what you could even imagine what it means like to be in the way of a federal investigation. Not saying that I have any opinion on that, but I'm like, just look at the historical facts, and then you can step back and realize what peace actually means to you. Because you
Yeah.
are making your choices. Like I said, I love what you said, because you are making the choices. You put yourself in those situations, and I'm not trying to be that guy or try to sound like an asshole here, but like if you play stupid games, you get stupid prizes.
Yeah.
Period.
It's just like, even on a lesser level, like I was making myself feel bad by looking at all this crap.
Yep.
So sometimes it's just shut it off. But like Kendrick Lamar said, turn the TV off.
Dude, that's it.
Turn it off.
Dude, dude, I love this, because I was seeing this through, because I go through my phone probably at least once a year just to clean out like old things. And when I was living in California, there was like this place on the Cahuenga Pass right before I got to like my place in Valley Glen, and it was just this dude that had this amazing fucking mural, and it just said blow up your TV. And I remember taking a picture of that shit, and I saw that yesterday, and I was like, yeah, dude, your phone too. Your phone. Literally put your phone in the fucking toilet. Like I cannot speak so much to the notion of your inner peace is fucking everything. Your correspondence of how you are peaceful is going to be how you navigate this world, and how you get subjugated to what's outside of yourself without your own inner peace. I guarantee you're going to get fucking you're going to get lost. You are going to get lost, and it's going to be so painful for something that you can't control.
I
100%.
don't think our brains were meant to handle this much.
No, fuck no. Absolutely not. Dude, we can see the studies on that too. Like we've done the studies in-house as well here. It's like we don't have the adaptability specifically for our own processing speed to handle what we are just given. Like literally it took and I remember I share this very often with our community. It took 1,500 years for the world's information to double. 1,500 years. Now this shit's happening every 12 hours. Every fucking 12. I'm like, guys, put that into computation and just go into meditation, because holy shit, like you're just getting bombarded with so much information. Lord knows if you have kids and you have, businesses, multiple businesses, like you already have enough information coming into your being. Just stop. Just stop, right? Just stop, go in and just really re-navigate and re-scaffold what is most important, because dude, it's gonna be there. Trust me. Like I didn't post for an entire month, prior to my dad going to the ER right before Christmas, and I didn't miss anything. Like I didn't miss anything. I just made my first like, hey, what's up post earlier this morning, and I didn't miss a goddamn thing. Like
Yeah.
you could literally stop posting or stop being online for a year, and you're not going to miss anything. It'll probably be more challenging for you to navigate once you get back to that too. But I'm like, you have to literally, your sovereignty, your inner peace is the most important thing, as especially as a mom, father, business owner, or people that are taking care of yourself, but just in general, like you have to make sure that your inner sanctorum is the most important fucking thing, and then your faith as you move through that, because this world is going to constantly grab your attention for shit that you can't do anything about. You really can't.
Like a Commodore 64 in a what am I trying to say? A quantum mechanic computer age.
Seriously, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm
It is,
like, we have
yeah.
we have the greatest mechanisms within our mind, but we don't know how to navigate it because we're constantly distracted from things that are outside of ourselves. That's why I'm saying, I'm like, you like building a solitude practice is going to be so imperative for everybody, and then obviously going through within the accountability structures, it just gives you a permission to just be like, "Yeah, I can show up and I can let go." If you can show up and let go, because I'm like, who gives a fuck? If you show up and you're awesome and we just know that you're present, you can let go. You can let go of anything. Anybody that's in conversation, just in general, even just between me and you, I can let go of anything just by talking to you right now. But if people know that they can go to a place to do that, like you are creating more energetic and like what I call emotional anarchy, but also energetic sovereignty for how you're going to move through your life.
To Chase Hughes, and he basically expressed that is that now even when you go to the toilet, you're taking your phone with you. Maybe it's doing
Right.
something as simple as that is, hey, take a shit without your phone. You know, it might
Yeah.
be, just little things like that because we're not able to drop into that meditative state where we're not being bombarded, but actually sitting with our thoughts and
Yeah.
working through those.
Well, it's
So
also sitting with the receivers because I love what you're talking about. They're universal. The second step to the flow cycle is a drop in. Right? When you drop into that release aspect, it's not, remember, you're not really thinking your thoughts. You're just thinking what you've received over the accumulation of your life. So when we clear that shit out, your thoughts not only are clear, you can start to direct them differently. And you start to really live without the what's the best way I can say it? Without the tightness of everything around you.
mhm,
Right. And then if you understand, and this is probably for our third segment, the bookkeeping of life, right? You get to understand what your actual name means to this world rather than what the world gave to you. And bro, that's where I see things the next like 4 or 5 years, especially just like on my side, but also just doing my best to be that and just collaborating with people that are so fucking ruthlessly honest, not afraid to fucking say anything, kind at heart, but also they don't take any shit. Right, they're
yeah,
willing to defend themselves appropriately and also have a bite to them. Because if we just talk about the woo woo just being so kind and loving, I'm like, Doc, that's not how Jesus rocked this world, bro. Like that's not. I was like, yo, this motherfucker was a badass, and if he had to like chomp his bit like he did, and I was like, that's for me. I constantly am reminded. I'm like, dude, I don't identify as the prototypical Christian, but I do follow the truth, the way, and the light, which is Christ, and it is ruthless, right? It is a relentless pursuit of peace, but also not not fucking taking shit from this world, bro. Like this world is constantly going to give you a bunch of shit from their opinions and their projections, and if you can hold fast to how you're moving that, bro, love it, man. I'm so about it. I'm so about it,
yeah. Well, Kyle, I think
dude.
we had our
We did it.
audience enough. Yeah, we did it, buddy.
Locked it in, man.
Well, pretty good, man. I
Dude,
felt
it's
like
it's 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 awesome, man, and I just wanna say this because I'm so thankful for Katie. Yes, I got to work with her, which is cool, like, that was moons ago. But for people, especially that are listening, to what you're doing, anybody that's going through substance abuse issues like myself, in the past, and even veterans, like I'm just so happy to be a part of a project like this because most people like put us on a pedestal where we're supposed to like speak to other people, but I'm like this the groundworks aspect, the grassroots of just being with people. I'm like I care more about that shit than anything, right? So it's just like to really be a beacon for those people. I'm like, yes, it does take some effort and all that shit, but I'm like, just for you guys to invite me to essentially co-create a series to help people. Like, bro, I'm so fucking thankful. Like, I get emotional right now because I'm like, dude, I just love helping people, especially for where I was at, what I went through, what I had to get to even just, respect the intelligence and the intellect that I was given as a gift. Like, I would do this hands over fist any day of the week. So thank you.
We
Thank you for
really
giving me that opportunity.
we really appreciate you. For all those who found this beneficial, where can they go to find you? How can they maybe work with you? Or
Yeah. Very similar to our last segment. I don't know what round 3 looks like. Who knows? Maybe it's round 3, round 4. Maybe it's a consistent one every month kind of vibe. Who knows? Who knows? We're in a cool spot. But Kyle Anthony Trautmann on Facebook is the best place. My team runs High Vibe Holonomics at High Vibe Holonomics on Instagram. We do a lot of research-backed aspects, clips, certain things where you can check out some of the um, other conversations that I have. We have an entire link tree of former podcasts of just kind of understanding the ins and outs of my walk, what we do. But yeah, just reach out. Kyle Anthony Trautmann via Facebook is the easiest way to go about this. And I can only imagine, within the near future, like how we can collaborate something within like a group and make that an awesome possibility for people. So, because the more that I thought about it, I was like 3 segments. I was like, I don't know, man. This might be like a once a month, once a quarter kind of vibe where we just, pop in and just have a cool fucking talk. Because it's not just really about the work; it's really just about the connection. The work kind of comes from once you can connect with somebody that's really not only a part of this process, but also just really living it too. So that would be the best way to go about it. I'm really easy to access. Yeah, man. And I love to connect other people with other solutions if I can't even be a help for them. So that's it.
thank you so much, Kyle. Thank you,
That is.
audience. Peace out.
My team and I know how valuable your time is, so we wanted to thank you for making Across the Table part of your day. By liking, sharing, and subscribing, you help keep us inspired and motivated to continue creating content for all of our listeners. If you have ideas for the show or would like to be a guest, please contact me via email at james@acrossthetablepodcast.com. That's james@acrossthetablepodcast.com. Thank you.
Pull up a chair, set the world aside. Let's find the truth, we keep trying.